On behalf of the Professional Baseball Strength and Conditioning Coaches Society, I'd like to welcome you to the PBSCCS Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Messina.
All right, everybody. I'm here with Joe Hudson of the Boston Red Sox organization. Joe, thanks for coming on, man. Appreciate the time. Tell the listeners about yourself, if you would, please.
Hey, thanks for having me again. It's been a little while. But as usual, always good to catch up and to come on here. I'm Joe Hudson. I am in my first year as one of the strength and conditioning coaches for the Boston Red Sox. I am in my, eighth season with the org, first in Boston. I'm from Massachusetts, live in Western Massachusetts. That's about it for me.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that you've been on before. I've had you on a few times, both in groups and individual. And, selfishly, it's always good to just catch up as friends as well. But if anybody is listening that either hasn't heard you before or doesn't know who you are, just what was your journey to the big leagues? And then also, obviously, congratulations being in the big leagues for your first year. That's really exciting for you, especially for the hometown team. So,
Yes, yeah, it's been something we've been working for a while, and got some tastes over the past couple of years, and now finally here. My journey in baseball started like right after I graduated college. I graduated from a small Division III school in New Hampshire, Plymouth State University. I graduated in 2012 and started my journey as a personal trainer while I was, doing like some internships with local college football program, just to really get some experience, get my feet wet in the field. My undergrad was more like clinical exercise physiology. That's where most people went. But I wanted to do strength and conditioning, so my advisor kind of suggested that I go get some sort of internship experience in the summer before, trying to go the normal path of like uh, pulling some sort of 12-week internship, something like that, and then, travel somewhere and find like a more full-time internship experience. And, luckily for me, I, needed to pay some bills along the way. So I started doing some personal training, and about 6 months after that, I got my first opportunity as like a seasonal strength coach with the Phillies. And that was in early 2013. So I packed up, went down to Clearwater, Florida, in like towards the end of January, early February of 2013. Worked through extended spring, and then went to the Penn League, short season Penn League, which no longer exists, obviously, but in Williamsport, Pennsylvania, where they now hold the Little League Classic. So that was like my hometown, or the home stadium, back in 2013. After that, I decided I needed to get some more educational experience. So I decided to go back to grad school. I figured that it was going to be something that, benefited me in the long run, and I'd probably need to get it eventually. So before that flame kind of went out, I decided to leave, go back to grad school. I started at Springfield College that fall of 2013. Graduated from there in 2015, and along the way picked up another seasonal position. I just went out for the summer, worked extended with the Cubs at their rookie ball right at the complex out in Arizona. After that, kind of settled down a little bit in pro ball. Stepped away for a bit, got married, bought a house, started working at a private sector facility, and I did that for a few years before joining the Red Sox org in 2018, and have been here ever since. So For me, that started in high A. I had 4 years in high A, which was primarily Salem, Virginia, until after the COVID year when they kind of restructured some of the leagues and some of the teams, and our high A affiliates switched to Greenville, in Greenville, South Carolina. So I did that for a year before moving closer to home back to New England, Portland, our double A affiliate for a couple years. Last year, Worcester, and this is my first year in Boston.
Did you know you always wanted to do baseball? It seems like all your experience is kind of in the baseball setting, even from like an early on time.
Yeah, I played in college, and I've always kind of baseball's always been like my first love and passion, and my second thing being strength and conditioning. So those two things married together, and I've kind of just set that path and gone for it. I don't, you're very right on that. I don't have much experience outside of that. Some private sector stuff where I worked with some high level hockey players, but for the most part, it's been like very much baseball. I honestly don't even know if I could do anything other than baseball at this point in time. Just because my resume is so like stacked baseball heavy. But I love it. I've gotten used to this schedule. My family's gotten used to this schedule. Like it's just kind of our lifestyle. We know how it goes. Like with the off seasons, we have a structure and a schedule for everything, and kind of knowing when I need to, be in Fort Myers or travel to visit some players and do some check-ins. And then, from basically February to September, it's, full go baseball season. And that's just kind of the life we live.
From my actual personal experience, I can tell you, you can do other things other than baseball. Trust me.
Yeah.
I mean, I've said
Sure.
it so many times on here that I think everybody should work professional baseball if they can, and it'll make them a good enough coach to go do other things. And like now that I'm in other setting, like I promise you can do other things. So there are some differences, but if nothing else, the personalities in baseball will prepare you for anything in the real world when you go out and like
Yeah.
being organized in the schedule and all of that. So my next question for you, and I'm very curious if this has changed over the years or not, but what is your best professional baseball story that you have? Especially for me, knowing that you've gone from Penn League all the way to the big leagues. Like there could be an enormous amount of stories in that journey. So I'm curious what sticks out most in your mind.
Yeah, I was thinking a lot about this, and I have definitely shared some in the past. I think I shared a story of like the fog machine, in celebrating like clinching a playoff spot in A ball, and uh, there's a lot. A lot of them probably not appropriate for the platform as well, but thinking a lot about it, like I think one of the most memorable things for me was this year, just um opening day. Um I had a lot of, obviously like you go through spring and it's kind of just the same, like you've experienced it, big league camp, like, for us in the org, it was when you got to double A, it was like you helped out with big league camp. So I've been doing it for a few years now, and it's just kind of like, like we got to work, so you just do it, and you don't really even stop and think about it. But we went to Mexico and played in Monterrey before opening up the year in Texas. So it all just kind of flew by in that morning. Like the season started, you're excited, and got some calls from some members of the PBSCCS just saying like, hey, this is your first big league opening day, take it all in. You only get one of them. And it was really like a special moment that people reached out, and I'm sure they did it to everybody in the league that was new there. But we were in Texas. It's a beautiful indoor stadium, right? Like, well, it was indoors that day. Um, and just standing there on the line for like the opening day ceremonies, like look around, take a breath, take it all in, and very special moment, kind of one of those like you've achieved one of your biggest dreams kind of thing. And that one's really stuck out to me lately as one of those moments that you definitely aren't going to forget. Um, and then opening day at home for us too, having my family there, my kids and my wife, and um, they've been along for the journey as well, through like the highs and lows of minor league baseball and travel and being away. And so it was like a really special moment there as well, like have them come down on the field afterwards and just fully embrace everything kind of we've been working towards, right? There's a lot of sacrifices made along the way, and you know these are like some of the benefits of it, right, when you get those moments. So that's probably it for me, honestly. There's a lot of like funny stories, good stories, like, but that one sticks out the most.
Yeah, I can remember my first day too, man. A couple of the guys came up to me, a couple of the veterans, and just like, hey, I know you want to work and I know you want to be focused, but find a couple minutes just to take it in for yourself and go out on the field and really just soak it in. And funny enough, like I never really asked for photos of myself in the big leagues. And on opening day, Kiyoshi grabbed the cameraman and was like, "Hey, we need a picture. It's Chris's first day." And I'm like, "No, no, 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 no." And he's like, "Come on, let's do it. Let's do it." So we take the picture. I still have never gotten that picture. Never gotten. And it was Kiyoshi and I, and we both had masks on because it was 2021. It was still COVID times.
Yeah.
Like there's no fans in the stands anywhere. It's just Kiyoshi and I on the field at Fenway. And I don't know if I even need that photo. You know what I mean? Like that moment is so ingrained in my mind that I don't really need to look at it on a picture. It's just there. And I think for you, like from me looking back, like just take time when there are days that are really hard and really long, and just remember how special that moment was for you and like where you're at. And because obviously I'm preaching to the choir, the days can be long and the stretches can be tedious and there can be a lot on your plate and it can feel overwhelming. But when you take the time to think about those moments, really cherish it. And then the other part, like you said, your family being part of that, like I don't think I appreciated that enough when I was there with Karen, and then my parents and my brothers and everything. Like when your family gets to be a part of it, like really take the time to like appreciate that they get to be a part of it, because they put a lot of time and energy and effort and sacrifice into it. And when we're on the road traveling, like sometimes you forget that they're back at home, like grinding it out, especially at your house. You have kids. We don't have kids, so it's just another added layer for your family. So it's really awesome, man. And I'm glad you went with that route. I know you have a lot of good stories, and you're hilarious and have have a lot of good ones, and maybe we can share those off camera some other time. But it's definitely something that is special, and I'm really happy for you, man, as a friend, as a former coworker, like to see you to grind it out through the system there. And there were times that rightfully you probably thought that you got passed up, and you stuck with it, and you're there now. So super happy for you, dude.
Thanks, man. It's yeah, it's been, like you said, there's a lot of times when it's just there's a lot going on. It's stressful at times, you're in a losing streak, or someone gets hurt, or you know guys are struggling, and you feel like there's something you can do to help them, and all of those things kind of combine. And what I started doing, which has been really helpful, is like every couple Sundays when we were at home, like I'll get there early, I'll walk up to the monster and just sit on the monster for like 10 minutes, just throw a little like calm, like relaxing music on, and just look out over the field and think about like, you know, how lucky I still am, to be able to like have the opportunity to go sit up there, and this is like my workplace. And it helps kind of center me, bring me back down, to focus on whatever it is. Like you know we're lucky, man. Like there are so many other shitty jobs that we could be doing.
Mhm.
Like sometimes we forget that, just because the speed of the game and the speed of the workday just kind of consumes you.
Yeah, it's funny because I was kind of going over the notes this morning before we hopped on, and was like, I'm going to ask him when things get stressful, what does he do to like tone it down for himself? Because that's another thing. Like when I look back and reflect, I didn't really have something to slow myself down and kind of center myself, ground myself. So it's funny that you bring that up because I was going to ask you anyways. But man, just I like as you're talking there, I'm picturing myself sitting on the monster on a Sunday morning with the sun out and like some nice relaxing music. Nobody's really in the ballpark. Maybe they're mowing the lawn or doing the sprinklers or whatever. I'm like, that sounds like heaven. Like Karen asked me yesterday what I miss about Boston. And the two biggest things I said, Kiyoshi and the crew, my crew there, and Fenway. And like just being at Fenway every day. Even in the off season, like there was never a point where I was going to Fenway like 4 or 5 times a week. There was never a point where I was like, I don't want to go to Fenway. It was like, this is Fenway Park. Like the history, the magic of this place, like how loud it gets at night games when the crowd's into it. Like, so sitting there on the exact opposite of that loud side of it and just taking it in that peaceful moment, like, good for you, dude. That's like exactly the answer I would look for if I was going to ask you that question, and you already beat me to the punch. So keep doing it, man. That sounds immaculate. Maybe one day I'll find a way to join you up there.
Yeah.
We could just sit and meditate. But I do have so usually I ask what you believe in that makes you crazy. But I kind of want to change that for this one for you. Is there anything that you've changed your mind on over the course of your career? And maybe it is what you used to think you were crazy about and not anymore. Just, you've been around a while, you've seen a lot, you've been in every level of the minor leagues up to the major leagues. Like, is there anything that you've changed your mind on?
Yeah, I think this year, and I'm still obviously formulating some of this stuff, but I think this year what I've noticed is that, like, we're strength coaches going through the minor leagues. It's like, physically speaking, you guys have room like to improve, right? You have room to get bigger, faster, stronger, improve all of your outputs. Um, so that we can raise like your foundation as high as we possibly can. And obviously there's like a balance as you go up through the minor leagues. Like there's a balance between like how much risk reward you can take, how much, physical development plays versus performance outputs on field. And, that kind of teeter totter like shifts depending on the level and depending on the day and all of these different things. And, you know, getting here, like the priority, like first and foremost, is winning baseball games, right? And that requires like a different type of consideration towards what you want to do every day. um and a lot of times like adding additional stress into that through the weight room is, in some ways, like, while you're playing for the long term benefit of what that provides you, like might cut you a little in the short term. um so it's something that I've really been considering a lot, is like how much additional stress we add to the system, how much additional like compression we add to your body by externally loading you with weight. And I haven't formulated a full picture of like how much is enough, how much is not enough. But that's kind of one of the things I've really looked in at a lot this year is, you know, do you need to squat today? Like, do we need to load you heavy, or do we need to just make sure you get enough of a stimulus to get your nervous system going so that you can go out and play? And, everybody's here because they have a high level skill set, and that varies, person to person. Um, but we need to kind of like continue to reinforce what their strengths are. And uh, sometimes the adding additional load into that system may play away from what your strength actually is. Um, so it's definitely something that I'm not giving like a great, um, scientific type explanation towards, but it's something that been in the back of my mind all year is, how do we ultimately get you to move the needle from point A to point B throughout the year, but doing that in a manner where you can perform at your best every single day, and we can continue to reinforce what your strengths are, what the things are that make you a really good big leaguer, and kind of just sprinkle in a little bit of supporting work to help kind of nudge the needle forward in other areas.
Yeah, it's a really interesting balancing act, especially in the big leagues, especially when you're on really long stretches of games. And every game matters, especially in like the AL East, especially at this time of year. And so it's always like, I don't know, just sometimes you need to load, sometimes you don't. But there are some guys that want to load heavy all the time and they're fine. There are some guys that never want to touch the weight room and they're fine. And I think that was probably the biggest eye opener for me, was like, we had a guy that hit 30 plus homers and lifted maybe once a month, like, and then we had guys that really struggled and bought into the program completely, and everywhere in between. So it's a balancing act that I don't know if we'll ever have an answer for. And then as soon as we think we do, there's like another anomaly that comes through and just does something totally different. And then, the other thing is, like, guys go to so many different places in the off season. They get traded from different organizations. They come from different like philosophical backgrounds. And then you start mixing all of that into play. And then really the bottom line is just like, can you help this person get to where they want to go? While sometimes keeping them out of their own way, either from not doing enough or from doing too much. And I don't know, dude. And then the other thing is, like, you have a guy for multiple years in a row in the big leagues. Like, when you're back next year, you'll see this again. Like, that guy's whole mindset may shift from this year to next year on what he believes. And then you got to kind of just meet him where he's at. Or, if you're fortunate enough to be there long term with guys, you may have a guy 5-10 years down the road and like his whole mindset shifts. So it was like my first year in 21, I think we had like 4 guys that hit their 10-year mark in the big leagues, and like watching how some of them operate even 10 years later in the show, in addition to all the minor league years. And then like watching how the rookies operate, and then like how guys coming up in the system. I don't know, there's just so many different ways to get to that end point that I don't know if there's really ever like a right or a wrong answer, other than just keep the guy healthy, keep the guy moving, and like you said, make him like play to his strengths so that he can be as good of a big leaguer as he can. And then the other thing there is like their short-term trade-off to long-term value of like, hey, we need to win today. I didn't sleep last night. Like, I need you to gear me up for the game today, knowing that it's going to put me in a hole for the next 3 days. Like, I need you to help me today. And then you're like, okay, well, in the future, we can't do this, right? Like, this is an education moment. Like, we need to clean this up, but also, yes, I'll help you right now. So like, we almost become this Band-Aid for situations as well, that like, yes, we can help you, we can get you there, but it's really kind of negatively affecting things in the long term. So it's a very interesting balancing act that, again, going back to my point earlier, like, if you can work in professional baseball, like, there's nowhere else like it. And I was talking to somebody the other day, like, there's no schedule even close to what ours is. And like, I come to a facility where people don't have a baseball background, and when I try to explain all of the the details of the game and the details of the week and the month and the year and the schedule and the travel and the training and the practice every day and the games every day, they're like, how did you do that? Like, you just get used to it, you just figure it out, you make educated guesses. But yeah, it's kind of the beauty of the game, is just, we don't know. And as long as we're willing to admit that and try to do the best for players, like, I think that at least helps us have good footing to stand on in the clubhouse when when guys come to us. So I don't know if that's how you feel, but that's just kind of my own experience from that.
Yeah, it's such a mixed bag, right? Like, so this year, and not that you haven't experienced this a little bit in the past, like in the minor leagues, but like, I mean, you always think like, oh yeah, like I've gotten this experience before. I got a young guy, I got an older guy. Like, how do I navigate these two differently? Like, it's so different here in that, like, we have 21-year-old on our team that's, a rookie this year. We have like a 40-year-old who's like 10, 11 years in. We have someone who's got like 15 years in that's, 37, 38, and everything in between. In addition to that, like wide age range, like we have guys that are new, rookies that haven't experienced this. We have guys that have like 2 total years of pro baseball experience that have, debuted already, and guys that have been doing it for so long, they're like, yeah, dude, I know what I need. Like, just, I'll come to you if I need something, and everything in between. It is every day you show up a different story, a different situation for every single one of those guys. And you have to be so flexible and listen to everything that's going on and understanding of what shit's going on away from the park, and what things have happened to them at the park during the day that allows you to make the best judgment to kind of guide them into being ready when the lights come on at 7.
Yeah, the other thing you talked about earlier is like losing streaks, right? Like when you're in a losing streak, it feels like the world is just collapsing around you. And then the season is so long that like you lose 10 games in a row, and sometimes it just doesn't even matter. Like, but in that moment, it's like the worst thing in the world. Like everybody in the clubhouse, it's either like everybody's miserable or everybody's like, all right, today's the day we're gonna do it. And then you lose again, and you're like, how do we get out of this? You know what I mean? Guys start talking about like very drastic ways to fix the losing streak that maybe we don't need to talk about, but like that's just the craziness of the game. Is like you have all of these factors, and then also you're playing 162 games. So like a 1 week stretch, like I was talking to some of our NFL guys at the facility, I'm like, you could lose every game in a week and it still wouldn't even matter in the big picture. Like sometimes it just doesn't. Sometimes it does, right? Like it can break your season, but sometimes you have such a good team that like, all right, we just had a bad week, and they're like, that would be like losing 3 straight games in the NFL. They're like, that would be miserable for us. I'm like, yeah, I mean, it's miserable. Like you're literally at rock bottom for a week, and then it's like, oh wait, actually 3 months from now you look back like, yeah, it wasn't that bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
And then you
just
rattle off 10, and it just kind of like they completely cancel each other out, and you're back
correct.
where
It's just
it,
the roller
yeah,
coaster of the season, man. It's
it
crazy.
is. And that's another factor in the whole thing, is like how guys' emotions change just kind of based around both like team results and like individual results on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis, right? It's like guy's supposed to lift today, but he just gave up 6 runs last night. Like he's still a little pissed off about it. Like that changes your interaction with him for the day. And then on the flip side, like you got to capitalize when somebody's like, on a hot streak, and it's just like, yep, let's just keep going, doing the same thing we've been doing. You really have to like play with emotions, or at least like understand like people's emotions, and how you can kind of like, I shouldn't say manipulate, but like change your interaction to like positively affect how the day is going to go. And we'll talk, I know like we're going to talk about books and stuff like that, but that's one of them I'm reading right now is called Surrounded by Idiots, and it's just all about like different personalities and blends of different types of personalities, and how to interact with them and how they interact with each other.
All right, everybody, that's going to conclude part 1 of this interview with Joe. I hope you enjoyed this one. It was really cool to hear about his journey to the big leagues, and having worked together for years, and knowing the grind that he went through and the patience that he displayed and the work that he put in. Like, I'm really proud for him as a friend, as a fellow coworker, and it's a story of perseverance and persistence and patience, and hopefully it's inspiring to someone else out there to kind of continue to pursue their dreams. And if you got to wait it out a little bit and you just got to keep grinding, so be it. So the other thing that I'm really happy that he shared with us was his meditative process and really being able to center himself and ground himself when things get stressful and get busy for him. Personally, I think it's something that more strength coaches should invest in for themselves and try to find a way to do, especially as more and more gets put on our plates. It's a good thing to kind of have some good stress management practices in mind. So I would say go back, take some time, listen to that. Obviously, if you can't sit on the monster at Fenway Park, there are other ways to find some time for yourself and to really just be mindful and be direct with that. So 3 things that I took from Joe in this episode: take time to appreciate your moments of success, find ways to be patient and show gratitude when things get stressful or overwhelming. And the more you understand and appreciate all the stressors in an athlete's life, the easier it will be to make informed decisions about their training. With that being said, I hope you enjoyed this episode, and we'll talk to you again on the next one.